On a dark, rainy night in November 1971, a man strapped $200,000 in cash to his body and stepped off the rear stairs of an airliner into a freezing storm. He had hijacked Northwest Orient Flight 305 using a makeshift bomb, purchasing his ticket under the name Dan Cooper, a name later warped by the media into the infamous alias D.B. Cooper. For decades, authorities chased over 800 suspects, running down leads from deathbed confessions to copycat criminals, only to hit a permanent dead end. In 2016, the FBI officially suspended their investigation, codenamed Norjack. But as law enforcement stepped back, independent citizen scientists stepped in. Solving the case depends on laboratory analysis of the only two physical artifacts the hijacker left behind. The first piece of evidence is a cheap black JCPenney clip-on tie pulled from the passenger seat Cooper abandoned. Early efforts to swab the tie for DNA yielded no definitive matches. So in 2009, a group of researchers pivoted away from genetics and put the fabric under an electron microscope. They found rare earth materials embedded deep within the fibers. Specifically, the microscope picked up chemical signatures for cerium, strontium sulfide, and pure titanium. In 1971, you couldn't pick up those particles walking down the street. They were found exclusively in highly specialized manufacturing environments. This points a very clear arrow toward the Pacific Northwest's booming aerospace industry, which dominated the region's economy in the early 1970s. At the exact time of the hijacking, Boeing was developing the supersonic transport plane, a project heavily reliant on titanium and other rare elements. The microscopic debris on a simple tie eliminates hundreds of random suspects, reprofiling the hijacker as a technical specialist with direct access to the manufacturing floor of an aerospace plant. The second artifact surfaced 9 years later, in 1980, when a boy digging in the sand at Tina Bar, a beach along the Columbia River, uncovered 3 bundles of rotting $20 bills, totaling $6,000. For years, investigators debated how it got there. Some argued a surviving Cooper buried it as a decoy, while others believed he drowned and the river carried the cash downstream. To find the answer, researchers looked past the deteriorating paper and examined the microscopic algae, called diatoms, trapped on the bills. They noticed a biological anomaly. The specific diatoms present were a spring-blooming species. This meant the money entered the water in May or June, not November. This timeline aligns the November jump and the May and June diatom bloom with the massive water level spike of the June 1972 flood. Topographically, we trace the flow from the expected Lewis River drop zone straight down to the Tina Bar deposit site. The alignment of the spring algae bloom and the 1972 flood indicates that natural river hydrology dragged the money to the beach. Cooper didn't walk away to bury his ransom. He likely perished in the freezing waters. Pop culture paints D.B. Cooper as a suave mastermind who pulled off the perfect heist. The data tells a much colder story. Combining the two artifacts leaves us with a local aerospace worker who possessed inside knowledge of airplane mechanics, but made a fatal miscalculation by jumping into a hazardous river system in the dead of night. Traditional detective work exhausted its leads in 2016, reaching the limits of witness testimony and composite sketches, but the scientific method did not. By applying modern electron microscopy and hydrology to half-century-old evidence, researchers are resolving details that were invisible to the original investigators. Physical evidence never stops speaking. It simply waits for technology to catch up and provide clarity to decades-old mysteries.